I was quite literally the poster child. That night I went from like 67,000 to 120K overnight. All the times that my blindness frustrates me is either due to a lack of accessibility or the way somebody is treating me.
Molly Burke is a creator with a social media following of almost 5 million. She has spent her life raising awareness for the blind and low vision community and pursuing passions as a speaker, model, author, and advocate. In 2024, Molly was named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. For over 20 years, her wit, knowledge, and vulnerability has been featured by outlets like The Wall Street Journal, The Daily Show, and NBC Today. And she regularly works with major brands like Coca-Cola, Starbucks, and Amazon. And that is why today, Molly Burke is in the Creator Spotlight. Molly Burke is here with me. I am so excited to have you. This is actually the last episode of our season.
Honored to be closing out the 2024 season.
So let's get into this because even in researching this, I found out so many things about you that I didn't even know. And I'm like even more impressed than I already was. But you were the first blind person to hit 1 million on social media. That is just wild.
I agree. I feel like it should have happened sooner.
Yeah.
Like our community should have had more representation earlier than we did. But the important thing is that we're here now. We've gotten there. And now it's not just me. There's so many blind people who are being social content creators, running full businesses, succeeding in the public eye. But there still needs to be more. So we've come a long way, still a long way to go.
Definitely. So you started your career on social when exactly?
It's been 10 years. So I do feel like I'm at the point that I can claim OG status now. Like it's been a decade. My entire 20s. I'm 30 now. I started at 20. For better or worse, the entirety of my growing up in your 20s making mistakes all happened on the internet.
I find this really interesting. You were creating videos on YouTube for like 2 years and you had a bit of a following. And then what happened? Because then out of nowhere, it's over 1 million?
Something like that. So there was a few steps in between that. But yeah, I was posting for 2 years and doing well enough, certainly not enough to make a career out of. I had 5,000 subscribers. I'm not going to sneeze at it. You know, it's not easy to hit that first 100, let alone 1,000. So I had 5,000 after 2 years of posting consistently, like 1 to 2 videos a week. By no means was I an overnight success, but the biggest kind of leap that happened from there was that I got an invite to be a featured creator at VidCon. So to get that invite at just 5,000 subscribers was huge. And kind of, I was like, is this spam? Is this like, what's going on? This was a mistake. But really, they just wanted to start a conversation at VidCon that was quite ahead of their time, really, about accessibility online and disability representation in social media.
Yep.
And being at 5,000 subscribers, I was one of the biggest. So I grew after my first VidCon. Within about 6 months, I had grown to, I think, like 15,000. So growing 10,000 in 6 months was huge for me. And then by my next VidCon, a year later, I was at 67,000. And then that VidCon, I met NEISTAT. And that truly, the rest is history from there. I had like literally less than a minute with him. I pitched him on a concept and he was like, I love it. Let's do it. Here's my email.
Okay.
And people afterwards were literally like, that's a fake email. That's his throwaway. Like, don't get your hopes up. And so I didn't email him for like a couple of days because I was a little nervous. And then I emailed him and he emailed me back right away, like within an hour, and was like, hit me up next time you're in New York. Well, I had no plans to go to New York. So I was like, funny you should mention, I have a girls' trip to New York in a month. We did the collab. It was, I think, the first dedicated collaboration he had ever done on his channel.
No way.
He had 8 million subscribers. I had 67,000. He had launched a new business that day. And instead of like engaging in work, he didn't look at his phone the whole day. We filmed 2 videos, one for my channel, one for his. We spent like 6 hours together. And at the end of it, he's like, how can I help you? Like, what can I do? You deserve to succeed in this industry. I believe in you.
Oh,
and he just took me under his wing from there. And literally when he posted that video, I had no idea when it was going to go live. He didn't tell me. It just dropped. And I was live streaming on my Instagram and I got a text message. And it said, oh my God, NEISTAT? And I was like, the only way that person could know that is if he posted the video. So I like got off the live, raced to my computer, and that night I went from like 67,000 to 120K overnight.
Holy, the power of Casey Neistat.
Power of Casey Neistat.
That's such a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And I do love him, but I love him more after hearing that story.
Yeah, and he really like followed through. He introduced me to Samsung, who was one of his biggest partners at the time, and they really loved me and wanted to work with me. And that is how I was able to afford to move to Los Angeles a few months later. And again, was still like very much bootstrapping it, struggling to pay my bills. But that was like the money that helped me get there. You know, I went from living with mommy and daddy to paying LA rent.
Yep.
I was really dedicated to not taking just any sponsorship that came my way. I was dedicated to building a brand that was worthy of top tier brands. And I felt that like taking any weird random app nobody's ever heard of, some sketchy watch company, like those weren't going to serve the purpose that I was trying to create and the brand that I wanted to build. And so I wasn't taking brand deals. So I was relying solely on like my speaking and AdSense. And then the apocalypse happened. It was like right at that time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't getting AdSense. And so I was really struggling. And thanks to Casey and Samsung, that's how I was able to stay in LA and pay my bills.
Look at that. I love how you just went into like the purpose of this series, even like without me even asking, which is all about like how creators can make money, building businesses and like working with brands. And so I just really love that story. So yeah, when you talk about the Molly brand, what do you mean? You said, you know, I wanted to build a top tier brand.
Yeah.
I wanted like to build a brand with purpose. What did that mean to you and how has it evolved?
On the business side, I wanted to build a brand that looked and felt premium and was worthy of working with premium brands. I wanted to work with household names. I would rather work with less brands, but higher paychecks. So I'm not cluttering my feed with a ton of sponsorships all the time. I'm doing it every now and then. I'm being selective. And you know that when I'm working with that brand, it's a quality brand. So that was really important to me. And I really wanted to, on a personal side, build a brand that was purposeful, mission-driven, and stood with core values to increase representation of disabled people and minorities, to move the needle forward on inclusivity and accessibility, to educate and raise awareness, to bridge that gap in society that has existed for my community for far too long.
Yeah. I mean, and you did it. You've done it and it continues to happen. I also love that you're a fashion and beauty girly, right?
Yes.
And like
through and through.
And that's also what you bring to your channel with the intentionality of also what you're saying.
It was really important to me to strike a balance of making content that was very educational, that very much like why I don't wear dark sunglasses as a blind person, 10 things not to ask a blind person, those types of real education or edutainment, you could say, kind of content, and balance that out with like just a day in the lifestyle vlog of like my trip to Japan or a styling video or a makeup tutorial. It's really just as important to me to make a shopping haul as it is to make a video about accessible product packaging. Because if I can make you see my value beyond my blindness, if you can watch a shopping haul, forget that I'm blind, and only be watching it because you think I have good style, then I'm making a difference because I've removed disability from that equation for you, and you're seeing me as the human beyond disability, which is almost more important than learning about my disability. It's seeing the human past that.
I'm just like, yes, preach.
And being able to show people that I have value and my community has value in spaces that you might have ignored us, right? Like beauty and fashion. You're not thinking a blind girl is going to give you beauty and fashion tips because you think of those fields as so visual. So being able to be like, wow, well, if I can add value into that conversation, then where else can my community add value that you might be discounting us?
Yeah, and I mean, you are more fashionable than me and more colorful, so I need to take some tips from you. I also found it interesting in reading a bit about more of your background and like the social models. Like, there was something about, was it called the social model?
Social model of disability.
Yes, which there's also intentionality around that and that aha moment for you when you were younger of realizing the boxes the society was putting you in, right?
Yeah, so there's multiple models of disability or schools of thought around disability.
Yeah.
I believe there's around 8. There's kind of three most common, popular ones that are talked about, which is medical, social, and charity, or tragedy charity. And I follow the social model. I was very much raised and entrenched in the medical charity models, which really run adjacent to each other. I was basically thrust into being the face of a charity as a child. So I was quite literally the poster child. I was diagnosed at 4 years old with retinitis pigmentosa, which causes progressive vision loss. And at the time, my parents said to the doctors, like, give us hope. Like, who can we look to be inspired by to know how to raise a blind child? And there wasn't anything. Like, there's no books on how to raise a blind child, or certainly not in the 90s. The only place the doctors could send them was to this charity, because they believed the only hope I had was to see again, was to cure my blindness. So then my parents, and I have no blame to them, the world is inherently ableist. And if you are not disabled, you are likely accidentally ableist. And most disabled people are raised by non-disabled people, and therefore are kind of being raised in an ableist space. When I was around 16, I met the woman who introduced me to the social model.
Quick definition of social model.
So the social model is the idea that the cure for disability is not going to be found through science and medicine. It's going to be found through creating a space, a world that is more inclusive of everybody that lives in it. I remember when she introduced me to it, I felt like angry. I felt so incredulous that she would even suggest that I didn't need to be cured. Because that's how ingrained it was in me that I did.
So for you, the unlock was that it's not about finding the cure.
Right.
It's about owning it, and also making sure that ableist people also create safe spaces like that.
Well, it's not even just changing society's perception and opinions and behaviors towards disabled people. It's about changing the infrastructure of society. Everywhere should have ramps. Everywhere should have Braille. Everywhere should have audio description, ASL interpreters. Like, everywhere should have these things that allow everybody to function and contribute. Everything should be inclusively designed and accessibly designed. And it's actually less expensive. It's faster. And we're actually going to help the full spectrum of blindness, the full spectrum of disability, and not just one subsection of the community.
And how did that give you that confidence to then say, okay, now I feel like I'm ready to be me fully in these spaces and social media and everything?
Once I took the time to unlearn and relearn, to understand the social model, to get more involved with the disability rights movement, and I realized all the times that my blindness frustrates me is either due to a lack of accessibility or the way somebody is treating me. None of it has to do with me as a blind person. Because when I'm at home in an environment where I've catered it to be accessible to me, I can do the things that I need to do. I don't feel disabled.
Yeah.
I don't sit there doing my makeup without a mirror in front of me and think, I'm so blind, I can't do my makeup in a mirror. No, I just do my makeup the same way you would. I feel fully functional. But when I leave my house and I go somewhere that isn't inclusive or accessible, that makes me feel disabled.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that, because now, beyond YouTube and social media and brand deals and all that and speaking that you get paid for, you also get paid to be a consultant for companies.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Like you, I believe that every entrepreneur, especially creatives, we need multiple revenue streams. Got to have your hands in multiple pots, because you never know what's going to dip and what's going to rise.
This is how I describe it. Yeah, like that, the graph that goes up and down, right?
You can't expect it to always be going like this.
Yep.
And it's always going to be changing. So you got to change with it. You got to be flexible, and you have to be ready. So corporate consulting is something I've been doing. I've been dabbling in it for a couple of years, but I've been really going all in this past year and making that a much bigger part of my career, and really something I see being one of the biggest parts of my income over the next decade.
And so what does that mean? Like, what do you do with the companies?
Yeah, so the corporate consulting that I do is specifically on inclusive and accessible product packaging and product design and inclusive marketing practices.
And that's needed, I mean, because unfortunately they're not doing it right. And then they're having ableist people make those decisions.
Yes.
They're not hiring.
It's incredible how many times people design something for disabled people and no disabled people were in the room. Or they're marketing something And it's very clear that they didn't have a disabled person there.
Obviously, you working with brands within your social platforms has informed what you're doing in consulting, because I'm sure brands have approached you to work with you. Let's talk about the brands you've gotten to work with on the sponsorship side, because you've done a lot of different partnerships. Yeah. What have been some of the ones that stood out to you that you really like, that are fun to create?
I was the global face of Dove.
Okay.
For print and commercial modeling for Dove shower foam. And I put on my vision board when I was like 15 that I wanted to be in a Dove commercial.
No way.
So that was crazy. That was just like, okay, manifestation works.
Yeah.
That was wild for me. I think growing up dreaming of being an actress in mainstream media, that gave me that like little fix of what it was like to do mainstream commercial work. And then another one was being an Aerie real role model. I worked with Aerie for 2 years. Alongside so many incredible women like Iskra Lawrence and Allie Reisman, Brenna Huckabee, and so many others, doing social work, like social campaigns, but also, again, was like on their website and in their store windows and on billboards and doing speaking engagements and community events and meetups and really building out long-term partnership, big scope stuff. And it was a dream come true because, again, it aligned with my love of fashion. I got to work along so many incredible, empowering, uplifting, strong women and build true lasting friendships. And I love when I get to work with a brand big scale.
Yeah.
Honestly, I hate one-off deals. I hate them. I want 3-month, 6-month, 1-year buy-ins. I want to do a variety of work from consulting to speaking to social posts. I want to go in with a brand. I want to go all in with them, and I want to feel like they're all in with me. And I want to build something that feels authentic. And the more long-term it is, and the more we do together, the more authentic it is.
It's harder because like people are so in and out of these companies. So like they're not sure they're going to be there in a year, even though they could do the deal while they're there.
It is changing faster than ever. The industry, I don't even know if it knows what it's doing. Like, I think we're all fish out of water, even the people who've been in it for a decade. It really does ebb and flow in terms of the opportunities that come, what they look like, when they're coming. The platform's changing so much. The creators are here 1 minute, gone the next. It's so difficult, and I don't blame companies who are struggling to figure out how to navigate it, because as a creator, sometimes I feel like I'm struggling to navigate it.
I think that a lot of people do want to talk long term, but it's just
it's hard to commit to long term right now when things are changing so much.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what to commit to.
Totally.
Right? We're like, okay, let's build in 8 TikToks over the span of 12 months. Will TikTok be there in 12 months? Like, right? It's hard to figure this stuff out right now.
What I also loved about the highlights, they were fashion, beauty. Even though a lot of the brand deals you do are around accessibility, that's obviously not what your whole brand is about, right?
Absolutely. As I said, it's just like the breakdown of my content. I believe there's an important, valuable space for both.
Yeah.
Right? Like I love getting to work with brands who are being accessible and inclusive and highlighting a tool that other blind people can use and find benefit from and sharing with them things that they might not know. The reason I started my channel was to build community and representation for them, to feel seen by somebody. But then equally, I feel like working with beauty, fashion, lifestyle brands is just as important and valuable because I get to be seen for more than just my voice as a blind person. I get to be seen for Molly, and I get to create representation in industries that historically have been extremely non-representative of basically anybody.
Totally.
Let alone disabled people.
What advice do you have for brands who are wanting to work more with the blind community or disabled community? And again, knowing that you are not the voice for everyone.
Yes, I can't express that enough. I represent myself as one blind woman. I don't represent an entire community. From my perspective, I think that we need to be involved at every touch point. So that means hiring inclusively internally, hiring inclusively with the marketing, the design. We need to be in all the rooms every step of the way.
AI is now the big thing, but I feel like you've been using AI, or AI has been maybe in your life for a bit.
Yes, longer than for most.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. your take on AI as someone who uses it in life and also as a creator.
I understand why AI scares people.
Yeah.
Because admittedly, in some ways it scares me.
Mm-hmm.
I try to highlight the positives of it because there are so many benefits, especially for the disabled community. The power of AI to see for me is incredible. And that's why I've been using AI for so much longer. Apps like Seeing AI for Apple or Lookout for Android. Same app for each platform.
Mm-hmm.
And for years, I've been using that to read labels to me, read pieces of mail that come in, labels on packages. It can read the money to me, like paper money, all these things that it's been able to see for me for years. Or even I can scan my environment and it'll describe what's around me. So if I'm looking for something, I can pick up my phone and it uses the camera to see what's around. And it'll tell me like dog, mug, chair. And yeah, it's basic right now, but it's getting increasingly impressive what it can do and the detail in which it can describe. And sometimes when I can compare what AI is describing to me to what a person would do for me, it's doing more.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And so for me as a blind person, it really can create way more independence and autonomy that currently or previously I would have had to rely on a sighted human to do it for me.
Yeah, which I love that perspective, and I think it's important because we tend to be like, oh, it's all bad, but it's you tend to forget how much it's really supporting people who need it.
Absolutely. And in from the creator's perspective, in your workflow, there are ways that you can use AI. I'll admit, I've had times where I've had a corporate partner who is pretty rigid on what they want me to say and how they want me to say it, and it just doesn't feel authentic. So I'll take that script, I'll have Gemini or ChatGPT, and I'll say, convert this script into something in the words of Molly Burke.
And because you have enough
Because I'm
online.
a public figure, they know my voice and tone. And I read it, and I'm like, damn, that does sound like me, and also it wrote it better than I would have.
Yeah.
And I've used that script. And the brand approved it, and I made the content. And so it saved me a lot of time, and it saved me a lot of stress trying to rework something. And it did it better.
All right. Where do you see your business and you as a creator in the future? Where is this all going?
Corporate consulting, as I said, is definitely something I want to lean more and more into. I feel really fulfilled by what I've been able to accomplish in the creator space and being a part of paving a path for other disabled creators and creating more representation. And now I want to feel that same fulfillment from seeing a product that was formerly inaccessible become accessible and be on shelves for the average consumer to grab and know that I was a part of that.
Oh, so exciting. And finally, just other creators. I mean, there's new creators coming into the space all the time, even though it feels like we've been around forever. What advice do you give newcomers?
Oh, man. Get a manager because you're going to be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
You're going to get taken advantage of because when you are new to this industry and a company is like, we'll give you $500 to make 3 TikToks, you're like, oh my God, you're going to give me $500 and I make TikToks every day anyway.
Yeah.
And you're going to give me like this handbag that I would have purchased with my own money? Well, I'm basically saving money, girl math, you know? You're worth more than that. And they know that, but they know you don't know that. So get a manager.
Molly, you're fabulous. It's been so great sitting down with you. I've just loved this time, and I can't wait to see what else you create.
Thank you. I've had so much fun with this conversation.